Council a request from basically from DOST, Durham Open Spaces and Trails, and EAB, Environmental Affairs Board. They are working with EQUA, Ellerby Creek Water Association, around a proposal to create a nature preserve with city land. And so they would like the opportunity to present their proposal at our January 6th, 2022 work session. And so I'm bringing that item forward. Both Councilmember Freeman and I have been working with those respective commissions on this item. Basically, for our new folks, it's just when there's proposals like this, there's just got to be a majority to say, yes, we're open and welcome to hear that at a work session in the future. So I'm asking for, perfect. So for staff, that would be on our January 6th work session agenda, and I have instructed those folks to send those materials to staff so that can be added to our agenda packet. Thank you, that's all.
Thank you so much, and thank you for that. Are there any other comments?
Just briefly, and first of all, it's great to be here. Have our first work session together. These mics are sensitive, right? For the sake of December graduates, high school graduates, there is an initiative that's available right now through the North Carolina Community Colleges. There is a program, yourhighereducation.com, where students, many of them, can possibly be eligible for $2,800 in tuition coverage for 2 years. And so I just wanted to put that out there as public information for our students here in DPS and other schools, education entities, for them to be aware of that and the amazing learning experiences that Durham Tech has to offer. yourhighereducation.com. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anyone else? Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, honorable colleagues, to all in attendance and those who are watching at home. Let me add my word of welcome to our two new colleagues on their first work session, Her Honor, Mayor O'Neill, and to my brother and friend, Councilmember Williams. Welcome to our first work session. I had opportunity to give words as the Ward 2 councilperson, if I'm being sworn in on Monday evening, but after being sworn in as Mayor Pro Tem, I didn't have an opportunity to say a few words. So this is my first work session as Mayor Pro Tem of our city. I firstly want to acknowledge the immediate past Mayor Pro Tem who has set the bar extremely high, to our friend and sister, Councilmember Johnson, who I already put on notice will be an oracle and a ruse that I'll be calling from time to time to get advice on the job, and I want to thank her for her service. Your Honor, I want to thank you also for your trust and confidence in asking me to do this, and I want to thank my colleagues for their vote, allowing me to assume this mantle of service. One of the reasons why, Mayor, I accepted it is because I listened to you while you were campaigning talk about unity and the importance of bringing our city together. And I want to pledge to you publicly that's a mantle and a spirit that I plan on partnering with you to maintain in this chamber and in this body and in the city at all times. I think we're in a unique position to model for the city, for the nation, that we can have spirited disagreements, but we will not devolve into toxicity. We will not devolve into rancor. We will not devolve into disrespect. And that is something I pledge publicly to always safeguard and be in the vanguard of protecting. So I want to thank you for setting that tone and for agreeing to continue to build on the wonderful spirit of collegiality that's been established in this body. And I want to thank you again for allowing me to play this role. Real quickly, we know that we are concerned and we're watching numbers with regard to Omicron in the city. We're watching very closely. We know that that's going to be an issue for us as we move forward. We're a city that has not come out of a pandemic yet. So I want to just say to folk once again, if you're not vaccinated, please get vaccinated. And if you're eligible to get boosted, please get boosted. It's important as the holidays are upon us and we're coming more indoors. We know that the possibility of infection, because we're all closer together during this holiday season, goes up. But our best line of defense is to be vaccinated and to continue with masking. Finally, I just want to say happy holidays to everyone. Had a wonderful celebration in our CCB Plaza with a wonderful Hanukkah celebration last week with the candle lighting. I want to thank all who showed up there. Happy Kwanzaa, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah to all of our residents and citizens as we get ready to go into this season of light. And may the light always defeat the darkness. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. Anyone else? I just want to give a few updates on the journey over the last 2 days. I've been calling it drinking water from a fire hose, but I'm at peace about it. But I'm very deliberate in how I'm trying to approach this very new and very important position. And I do have to give thanks first to our city clerk. I've been in her school. She is a great teacher. All of the things that I'm doing today in running this meeting, she has gone over those things with me, even giving me the wording and the script. So I just want to publicly acknowledge that I think I may have passed her class. And so that's been great. We had a brief tour this morning. Councilman Williams and I had a brief tour this morning of City Hall. I saw some places that I'd never seen before. And you know, this building has been here a long time, so we were able to meet a lot of the great new employees who went by the city attorney's office, met some of her very capable staff. I also had a meeting on yesterday with our city manager and her assistant and her chief of staff, and that was a great meeting as well. So we are learning a lot and glad about it. The one thing that, you know, I've known what dysfunction looks like in an organization, and I can assure the people of Durham that you have an A organization. We just need to add the plus. And I would like for us to start off at least by thanking all of our city employees for a job well done. Well done. So we will go back in training tomorrow for a full day.
Recording in progress.
And then we will continue our training. I think we'll be trained at the Institute of Government in the next coming week. So we are enjoying ourselves, but you will see us sort of defer some things until we get our minds and spirits around what we're called to do. I will not make decisions in a vacuum. I try to be as knowledgeable as I can, so you may see that happening until Councilman Williams and I can at least go to school and at least have an opportunity to visit some of the other spaces where our city employees are. We're planning to have some tours in upcoming weeks, so we are primed and ready to go. I just ask that you give us grace and patience, and not only that, for all new employees who are coming into this arena. We all know there's a learning curve. I give kudos to our new police chief, she has the additional task of moving into Durham. So we just ask for her to be given the space and opportunity to learn what she's doing. It's a very difficult job, and we want to be as supportive as she makes the transition in as well. So with that being said, I'm gonna go back to what my teacher taught me on yesterday, and we'll look at the first order of business, which is our priority items. And I would now recognize our very able and capable city manager for any priority items.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, and members of the Durham City Council. I do have a few priority items for you today. I have agenda item number 15, which is the professional engineering services contract with Brown and Caldwell, Inc. for the Western Intake Partnership Environmental Permitting Project. The administration is asking that this item be referred back to the administration for further work. Agenda item number 16, professional engineering services contract with CDM Smith, Inc. for the Western Intake Partnership Regional Water Treatment Facility Preliminary Engineering Project. We're also requesting that this item be referred back to the administration. Agenda item number 26, Rebecca Ponce de Leon. Attachment number 2 was added to include the department's response. And agenda item number 27, a zoning map change, 518 Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway a supplemental public hearing item was added as a continuation from the December 6, 2021 City Council meeting. That is all of the priority items I have for you today.
Thank you, City Manager Page. At this time, I would like to entertain a motion to accept the city manager's priority items.
So moved.
Second?
It has been moved by Councilwoman, I'm going to get all our names right in a minute, Freeman, and seconded by Councilwoman Johnson. Can I now have move to approve those priority items? All in favor, if you would, say A.
Aye.
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 And all those opposed would now have the same right. The ayes have it, and the motion passes unanimously. Thank you all. And now we'll turn to our city attorney and see if she has any priority items for our consideration today.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem Middleton, members of the City Council. It's very good to see you. I actually do have a priority item, which is unusual for me, and it's not a closed session request. I actually received an amicus curiae request. The seasoned members of council have sometimes gotten this from me through email, but I think for the benefit of our newer members, it would be good to have a discussion about it really quickly. So I received an email from attorneys for Los Angeles County and the City of Los Angeles, and they are intending to file an amicus or friend of the court brief, don't have to explain that to the judge, on behalf of cities and counties in the case of the state of Texas et al. Versus the United States of America et al. So this is a case that deals once again with the federal DACA program. The states of Texas, Nebraska, Arkansas, South Carolina, Alabama, Louisiana, and West Virginia have sued the federal government, challenging the very legality of DACA. The Biden administration is defending the lawsuit on behalf of the United States in an effort to preserve the program. And this appeal is a little different than the one that we filed an amicus brief on a year ago, in that it's of critical importance to any jurisdiction that has ever supported DACA. So you all may already be aware that in July of this year, a federal judge in the Southern District of Texas issued an order and permanent injunction in the district court finding that DACA as a program, as a whole, is unlawful. So as a result, the Napolitano memo creating DACA that originally created the program was vacated. It was remanded back to Department of Homeland Security for further action. And the only portion of the order and permanent injunction that has been stayed is the vacatur as to existing DACA recipients. So given the substance of the court's order, LA and LA County plan to join the case as friends of the court, amici, to highlight how DACA recipients have made amici's communities more prosperous and safe. They will also show that DACA does not confer work authorization and is thus not subject to the Administrative Procedural Act's notice and comment requirements, which is what the district court looked to vacate the program. At the district court level, an amicus brief was filed that included a group of 50 local governments from across the country, and locally, the town of Carborough and the town of Chapel Hill participated in that brief. The United States Conference of Mayors, the National League of Cities, the International City County Management Association, and the International Municipal Lawyers Association, of which our office is a member, all also participated in that amicus brief. They are trying to expand that coalition for the appeal that's now going up to the Fifth Circuit, and they have asked that the city of Durham join the coalition for the amicus brief. So I am asking for instruction from the council on whether to sign off on, join the amicus brief, adding the city of Durham to these efforts. Okay, looks like I have unanimous instruction. Thank you, Madam Mayor, that is all.
Thank you so much. All right, at this time, I'd also ask now to entertain a motion to accept her priority items.
So moved.
Second.
That has been moved by Councilwoman Freeman and seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Middleton. Now we will call for the vote. All those in favor all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
And now, I believe now we turn to our clerk. Is that correct?
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor,
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Middleton, and council members. I would like to request a priority item. I would like items 1 through 8, the board, committee, and commission and task force appointments to be returned to the administration and deferred to the January 6, 2022 work session.
You have now heard our able city clerk's priority items. May I have a call for a motion for her approval? So move.
Second.
Right. It has been moved by Councilwoman Freeman and seconded by Councilman Williams. At this time,
Mayor Neal, could I just be heard real briefly on those items?
I'm sorry?
Could I just be heard real briefly on those items real quick? I just wanted to let especially my new colleagues know that item number 4, the Human Relations Commission appointment, has one applicant. Generally speaking, it's been my practice to request re-advertisement where only one applicant has applied for one position. However, earlier this year, we had a resident who was in that situation who was upset that they weren't approved, even though they were well qualified. And so they brought it back and we revoted and we went ahead and put the person on because one of my colleagues at that time was Councilmember Freelon, asked that we go ahead and vote on the person. All of that, I just mentioned that because it may be new to a couple of new members, that it's been my practice to vote to re-advertise in a situation like this. But if any of my colleagues says, I appreciate that, but this person seems especially well qualified, will you go ahead and support them now? I'm happy to do that. So when this comes back in the first week in January, I just wanted to let my colleagues know about that. Thank you, Madam Mayor. That's all I had.
Thank you. And one of the reasons that we have asked that these items through our clerk be deferred is to allow the opportunity for Council Williams and I to actually understand all of the committees. We have a lot of committees and we'll be making those appointments hopefully in January, but that will allow us to get some context for the committees and also take a look and review the processes that you all have set in place for how that's done, and also be able to look at the information that's been given to us thus far. So I appreciate your patience and I appreciate you taking the time to explain that to us. Thank you. Thank you. Now, so I think at this point we were at the point of calling for the vote. Correct? All right. All right. So now I would ask if you would. What am I doing? You have heard the clerk's priority items. Now I would now like to call for the vote. All those in favor by saying A or aye.
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 All those opposed? Hearing none, the ayes have it, and the motion passes unanimously. We have made it through the priority items at our first work session. Thank you all. Our now second order of business would be to read the administrative consent orders, which is the consent agenda. Okay, so this. All right. So on our administrative consent orders, item number 1, Durham Affordable Housing Implementation Committee, that appointment has been referred back. Item number 2, we can move that. Item number 2, Durham City Council Appearance Commissioner appointment, that has been also referred back. Item number 3, Durham Homeless Services Advisory Committee appointment, that has also been referred back. Item number 4, the Human Relations Commission appointment, that item is also referred back. Item number 5, the Mayor's Council for Women appointment, that item would also be referred back. Item number 6, the Participatory Budgeting Steering Committee appointment, That item is also being referred back. Number 7, the Racial Equity Commission appointment. That item is also being referred back. And item number 8, the Recreation Advisory Commission appointment. That item is also being referred back. And that will conclude those items under the administrative consent agenda. We now will turn to our departmental items. And we have item number 9, the annual comprehensive financial report for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021. And that will be a presentation at this particular time.
It'll be later.
At later on? Okay, thank you. And then we will have the city manager's office on item number 10, is that correct? Bob Barker Company Foundation Grant Award to support Durham's Guaranteed Income Pilot.
Madam Mayor, I don't want to pull that item, but I do just want to go on record again to thank former Mayor Schul and our staff for working so hard, particularly on the fundraising aspect. I want to, as always, shout out Amber Wade and the staff who did just an incredible job in marshaling our resources and goodwill to put our guaranteed income pilot over the line. And one of our biggest hurdles was our fundraising effort. So I just want to stick a celebratory note here with this item and look forward to voting on it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mayor Pro Tem. And we will now turn our attention to item number 11, the roadway safety improvements on Holloway Street.
Mayor Neal, could we pull that item, please?
All right. Item number 12, the award of construction contract to Classic Protective Coatings, Inc. for the 2021 water tank maintenance project.
Madam Mayor, would you pull that, please?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Item number 13, the award of a service contract to EMA Resources, Inc. for handling and disposal of water and wastewater treatment plant biosolids. Item 14, the award of a service contract to Hydromax USA LLC for the valve auditing program project. Item 15, professional engineering services contract with Brown and Caldwell, Inc. for the Western Intake Partnership Environmental Permitting Project. That has been referred back. Thank you so much for that. Item 16, the professional engineering services contract with CDM Smith, Inc. for the Western Intake Partnership Regional Water Treatment Facility Preliminary Engineering Project. That also has been referred back. Thank you. Item number 17, the Tar River Land Conservancy. Is it? Okay, you all know I have braces under here, right? So there are some things that are not gonna come out quite right. Bombrick Naus Farm Watershed Protection Project, authorization to fund. The Triangle, number 18, the Triangle Land Conservancy. Did I pronounce it right that time? Yes. Thank you. Yay, I'm learning my lesson. Terry Road Farm Watershed Protection Project, authorization to fund.
Mayor Neal, I don't want to pull items 17 and 18, but I just did want to thank our staff for continuing to come forward with these watershed protection projects. Number 17 is a really important project to protect water quality in Lake Mickey, item 18 in the Little River Reservoir, both critical for our city's future growth and development. So thanks to staff, appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilman Reeves. Number 19, the appointment of finance officer, deputy finance officer, and tax collector of revenue.
Madam Mayor, I don't want to pull this item, but I do want to just send out a congratulatory word to the folk who will assume these positions. These are interesting positions that they're statutorily mandated positions for the city. We don't still get to hire willy-nilly. Legislature actually weighs in on these positions, but I do want to send regards and well wishes out to Mr. Hickman, David Hickman, Christine Collum, and Mindy Taylor, who will be assuming these positions, and thank them for their service. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Item number 20, the group purchase contract, 29 marked police sedans. Item number 21, contract renewal with Exxon Enterprise, Inc. for police body-worn cameras and in-car cameras. Item number 22, the contract with Morris and McDaniel, Inc. to conduct promotional testing and assessment services. Item number 23, revisions to the Northeast Creek Residential Septic to Sewer Cost Share Project.
Madam O'Neill, Mayor O'Neill, believe it or not, I'd like to pull that item.
And that concludes. I'm sorry. All right, we are now turning our attention to presentations, and item number 24 will be a presentation of the 2021 third quarter crime report. And then we will turn our attention to our citizens' matters.
You have to call them because you also have a supplemental item that you want to announce during.
Our citizens' matters are as follows. Number 25, Mr. Brandon Rich. Number 26, Ms. Rebecca Ponce de Leon. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, ma'am. We will also have supplemental items, which is your city county planning department, which is number 27, zoning map change, 518 Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway.
That's it.
And that will conclude our agenda for today.
And then you go back to hear from the citizens.
All right, and we will now return to our citizens who are here to speak with us today. Mr. Brandon Rich.
Good afternoon.
And Mr. Rich, you will have 3 minutes to address the council. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. 4 weeks ago, on November 10th, I was throwing a large bathroom mirror into a dumpster. To my horror, the mirror shattered as I placed it inside the dumpster. A large piece of glass ripped through about 5 inches of skin and muscle in the crease of my arm. I immediately took off my shirt and wrapped it with pressure, and I called 911. While the phone rang, I raced inside my house to get a clean shirt to wrap my wound. I waited 47.8 seconds for 911 to answer. Bleeding profusely and in a panic, I decided to hang up and call my neighbor for a ride to the hospital, and luckily he was available. Luckily, I hadn't hit an artery, or I would have bled out during those 48 seconds waiting for 911 to answer. Even more shocking than seeing the inside of my arm and puddles of blood at my house was the fact that 911 did not answer my call in almost a minute. I thought 911 was for life or death emergencies, yet our current system has people waiting almost an entire minute in the middle of a Wednesday afternoon. I felt like my city and elected leaders have failed me, and I think about the thousands of others who have put in this situation with even more life-threatening situations than me, just because of Durham's complete failure to fill a significant portion of 911 operator positions for over a year now. In this past November alone, 4,052 calls to 911 were not answered within 10 seconds. This is a disgrace. Durham's 911 operator turnover rate in the last 12 months was 36.6. meaning about 1 in 3 operators quit their jobs in the last year. According to CBS 17, in May 2021, about 43% of Durham's call-taking positions were unfilled. As of November, that number has only dropped to 39%. We pay 911 operators in Durham just above $38,000 per year, or about $18 per hour. Many cashier jobs at grocery stores and big box stores will pay $18 an hour, the same rate that Durham pays the people we rely on to save us in life or death situations. 911 operators need to be paid a professional salary now. $38,000 per year is not a professional salary of people that we rely on for life or death situations. City Councilman Middleton told CBS, as far as compensation goes, Durham is doing pretty well. We have to stop with this complacency. This is a serious emergency service infrastructure issue. How dare we give up on paying these people, hardworking 911 operators, what they're worth? We can and must do better. The bar must be set higher than $2,000 to $3,000 more than neighboring cities and counties. Council Middleton goes on to say that when we spoke to 911 call takers, money is not the thing. It's emotional support and doing things to increase morale. According to CBS, the Durham Emergency Communications Center sent an email to employees encouraging them to, quote, open up about the challenges of their job so they could make improvements where needed. It seems this is the only thing they've done to address the issue of environment. Last week, I spoke with Randy Beeman, Director of Emergency Communications of Durham. He did not mention any efforts to address emotional support, morale, or turnover. However, I did learn 911 call takers are required to work at least 10 hours of overtime each month. Clearly, Durham's efforts to address the issue of poor 911 response has been a complete failure. 1 out of 3 operators quit in the last 12 months. We've only closed job vacancies 4% in the last 8 months. We must increase funding and we must improve working conditions. Let's stop the political rhetoric like Durham is doing pretty well and money is not a thing. People's lives are at stake. We need
Mr. Rich,
radical change.
we thank you so much for your time today, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ms. Rebecca Ponce-de-Leon, you would also have 3 minutes as well. Thank you for being here this afternoon.
Thank you and good afternoon to you all. My name is Rebecca Ponce-de-Leon and I'm here today to talk about Durham firefighters and request that they're paid a livable hourly wage. Even though the city of Durham has created an ordinance requiring that all city employees be paid a livable hourly wage of at least $16.92, almost half of Durham firefighters make less than this. These 182 firefighters are not just new recruits. Many of them are veterans to the department, and some of whom have served as city firefighters for over 14 years. As a result of low pay, many firefighters work second jobs to support themselves and their loved ones. This is in addition to the 56 hours per week they spend working 24-hour shifts away from their families. To put this in perspective, a fire recruit puts in over 800 more hours per year than non-sworn city employees because we demand round-the-clock coverage from the fire department. So how are we able to justify paying firefighters less than the citywide living wage? This goes back to that 56-hour work week I just mentioned. City Council has argued that firefighters are exempt from the livable hourly wage due to the unique nature of firefighters' work schedules. You've said it's acceptable to pay firefighters at a lower hourly rate because they work more hours. But ask yourself, would you support paying an employee less than $8.50 an hour as long as that employee was working 80 hours a week? Where do you draw the line? This logic clearly exploits and devalues firefighters' time spent away from loved ones, and time putting themselves in grave danger to keep our community safe. And this pay scheme frankly communicates that firefighters' time is worth less than other city employees, worth less than the time of city council members, who in October voted to increase their own pay by $10,000 a year in order to make the same livable hourly wage being denied to firefighters. Firefighters show up for our community daily to save lives and to keep our community safe. They work 24-hour shifts year-round so that they can respond to emergencies and protect Durham's residents at a moment's notice. and they've been on the front lines throughout every phase of the COVID-19 pandemic. Firefighters put their lives on the line for the residents of our beautiful city every day, and they deserve to be properly compensated for every single hour they work. Thank you.
Thank you for being here today. All right, let us now review the pulled items just to make sure that I have the same. I have number 11 pulled by Councilman Reese, item number 12 pulled by Councilman Middleton, and item number 23. Okay. All right. And we will now return to item 11, if that is, we all agree with those pulled items?
That's what I have, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. We will return to item 11 at this point. Which is the roadway safety improvements on Holloway Street. Highway 98.
Yes, this is Bill Judge, Assistant Transportation Director. I'm here to answer any questions that council may have about this item.
Wow, you're speaking to us from somewhere else, I guess, Mr. Judge, is that right? Awesome. Okay, so great. Thank you for being here to talk about this item. Mr. Judge, how did this particular project come about? I will admit that this seems kind of unusual to me. Does it seem unusual to you that this kind of project would come up in this way?
So, yes, typically this process would normally go through our normal capital improvement process and through the annual budget adoption. There was an opportunity here where NCDOT is pursuing some spot safety funding for this improvement. And in order to meet that deadline, they requested that we go ahead and bring an item forward so that they can be assured that the city would be willing to participate in order to get that funding on their end, that they'll need the city to contribute about 1/3 of the project cost, or $500,000.
So NCDOT just had an idea and came to talk to us about it?
So, well, the city and NCDOT jointly had identified this safety issue at this location based on crash history. And we jointly developed the solution for providing the left turn lane. They did a cost estimate. They have separate funding outside for safety improvements that goes through a separate process. The next deadline for applying is essentially the end of December. So they need it basically in order to qualify for that funding. They estimated that the city would need to contribute about 1/3 of it in order for it to score high enough in order to receive the rest of the funding.
Well, that's good to know, but I guess I'm still stuck on, was the city looking at crash data and realized this intersection was a problem and went to the state and said, hey, we got to do something? Did the state look at crash data and then come to the city? And I guess the reason I'm getting at this is I can think of lots of places in Durham that are state roads or the intersection of state and city roads, as I think this is, that can use safety improvements. And if this is a thing that can happen, it's a thing that ought to be happening more often. That's why I'm not just being a jerk. I'm trying to understand, like, how did this happen?
We have a monthly meeting with our counterparts at NCDOT where we review safety locations. I don't remember who first identified it, whether it was the state or the city as a potential problem, but we completed an accident or crash analysis of the crashes and determined, that there was a crash pattern and developed the solution jointly.
Well, that's fantastic. I did not know that happened. This is great to hear. If I have other ideas of other places like this that need safety improvements, I'll be sure to let you know so you can maybe bring this up in future meetings. Can you talk to me about the rationale for the cost sharing amount here? Why did we settle on 1/3 for the city?
was with some assistance from NCDOT where they did a cost benefit analysis, knowing historically what what that threshold is for projects being funded with the spot safety funding. Based on that, they sort of back calculated that if the city were to contribute about a third, it would likely be funded.
So are you saying that the spot safety program is a competitive funding system, and that the more that a local government contributes to a particular project, the likelier that the outcome of the process will be funding for that, state funding for that project?
Unfortunately, yes, it is a competitive process. The local contribution just helps to reduce the state cost. So obviously that then increased the benefit cost. Obviously, if there were, unfortunately, a even greater crash pattern or history where the benefits would be even greater, then likely they would not be looking for a city contribution, that they could fund it independently.
Oh, well, that's kind of interesting. The staff memo mentioned that there was an affordable housing project on the north side of this intersection at Lynn Road. Is that do you know if that's the Trails at Twin Lakes project? Or you might not know what that is.
It is.
Okay.
It's that project.
Great. Okay. Madam Mayor, that's all I had on this item.
Thank you so much, Councilman Reese. That was helpful to me as well, so thank you. We'll now move to board item number 12.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I pulled this item. Is Mr. Marone, is Jerry Marone?
Yeah. Good afternoon, Mayor, City Council members. This is Vicki Westbrook, Assistant Director in Department of Water Management, and Mr. Marone is available as well.
Good afternoon, Vicki. Thank you so much. I appreciate you being here. Is there a representative from Classic Protective Coatings with us?
No, sir. We did not ask them to be present today.
Okay, why didn't we ask them to be present?
I believe, yeah. Go ahead, Jerry.
Okay, in the somewhat recent past with the advent of doing these virtually, we were asked to just bring the questions from council to any contractors or consultants that might be awarded a project, but that they did not necessarily need to attend, and that we would pass on any questions or concerns to them. And I know now that y'all are not virtual, I didn't know that there would be a change in that procedure, but if there is, we can recontinue what we had going before we went almost all virtual.
I would imagine that being virtual will actually make attendance easier for folk. But with that being said, I do have some questions about the diversity of their workforce. So I don't know that you'd be prepared to answer on their behalf, but you can convey to them that Mayor Pro Tem Middleton had some questions, and I'll call them questions. I won't characterize them as concerns for number of questions, but I want to give them an opportunity to respond, and then it might turn into a concern based upon the responses. But at this point, it's questions about some of their employee statistics. But if they're not here, Madam Mayor, I'll defer and just wait. And perhaps I'll shoot you an email, somewhere around Ms. Westbrook.
So, Mr. Middleton, would you like for us to get the information directly to you before, within the next couple of days, so you can evaluate that? We do have the information on the other company, whose statistics were, they are a much smaller company and did not have even that broad of a diversity as the company that was selected.
Right. Well, I don't want to give you tasks I don't want to give you this busy work, because some of these questions are rather pointed, and they'd probably be in a better position to answer questions about their managerial culture and their corporate culture. I can see the numbers. I just need to know the story behind the numbers, so that probably would fall to them. But I'll follow up with you with an email, and perhaps we can contact them and get some responses directly from Classic Protective Coatings. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And be advised, moving forward, we are doing hybrid virtual and in person going forward. So thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. We will now turn our attention to item number 23.
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, could I make one comment about that last item?
Sure.
Just for our staff. I didn't completely understand either the rationale behind folks not appearing when we were virtual. I think it would be good to, in general, have the folks who are being considered for contracts available either virtually or in person. And I'm a little bit worried about, these contracts usually go through even when we're not thrilled with the diversity statistics, or we have concerns about their use of minority or women-owned firms. But we generally have the opportunity to ask them questions, learn about their hiring practices, their recruiting practices, encourage them to participate in city programs like the youth internship program. And that conversation with us is not always, I imagine that the representatives might sometimes find that uncomfortable, but I think that it's important. And so I don't want our policies to encourage them to not participate in that process. So just for our staff, just generally, I think we should be encouraging them to come. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Appreciate that.
So thank you, Madam Mayor and council members. We, have had a mixed practice of inviting our contractors who we are about to propose. Sometimes we evaluate whether or not questions may come up and whether or not they might not come up. Sometimes we have had them there, sometimes we have not. But I do understand that in this virtual environment is much easier if there's a question of whether or not this body might want to inquire because of what they see in the agenda, that we ask them to be available for those questions. And I will make sure that we incorporate that into our operations on our side.
Thank you so much.
Can we encourage them to be available via Zoom so that we're not encouraging folks to show up in person, especially with climbing COVID numbers?
Thank you all. That was a lively discussion. I've learned a lot. Thank you. All right, we're now moving to board item number 23.
That's me again.
Okay. Thank you, Councilman.
While we get staff on the line, I just wanted to say, as I did when we first saw this item back in June, that this is a fantastic program that encourages folks who live in the Northeast Creek area to convert from septic systems to connection to city water as a way to improve water quality in that part of the city. I think it's a fantastic idea. But I did have a question about the program. Is someone online to talk to me about it?
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor O'Neill and Mayor Pro Tem Middleton and members of council and Councilmember Reese. This is Jonathan Baker with the Public Works Department. I can't seem to turn my video on, so you'll just hear my voice.
Well, we'll just have to make do with your voice, Mr. Baker. Thank you for being with us. It's my understanding from the memo that we have to take action today, or this is on our agenda today, because the fee structure changed, I guess, with the county, and part of the program is so that the city can bear some of the cost of these fees on behalf of homeowners in the Northeast Creek area. Is that even close to correct?
That is very correct, yes. We found out about the change after this had been approved in June 2021. There was a change with the way that the fees were going to be requested from the county and the city and the amount. And so this revision is to account for the county fee structure, the city fee structure, and any annual changes to that.
Great, thank you. I guess my,
5-year period.
awesome. So I'm getting a lot of feedback. I apologize. Mr. Baker, if the county changes their fee structure again this year, are we going to have to come back and see this again, or is there some way to incorporate approval for future changes into the item? I hate having to redo this every year if this is a thing we want to do.
Yeah, that is a very good point. And I worked with the city attorney's office to draft the motion so that we would not have to come back year after year. So essentially, the way we tried to write it is so that the fees, the cost share amounts would adjust with any annual increases to the fees.
Wow. Well, you're totally awesome, Mr. Baker. Thank you. That's all I have, Madam Mayor.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Councilman.
Thank you,
Thank
members of
you.
council.
I appreciate the questions because that really kind of frames things for us. So thank you for those. Thank you for those. I am going to turn to our city manager at this point in time.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. I ask for a point of privilege to say thank you to a 8-year employee who is going to be leaving our organization to take a promotional opportunity on the West Coast. Her name is Regina Youngblood, and she is here with us virtually. She's on vacation, but she's joined us according to Ms. Wallace. And I would like to publicly thank Regina for the great service that she has provided to this organization, as well as to the community that we serve. I wish her extreme success in her new position as an assistant city manager in another community. And I hope that she is on the line so she can come on and say a few words at this time. She's not there. She's on vacation.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem Middleton. I'm on the phone with Technology Solutions to get Carmisha Wallace, City Manager's office, to get video for our speakers today. Regina actually was in the meeting. I think she had to leave to take a departmental photo, but hopefully we will be able to recognize her before the meeting concludes.
We certainly will. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we turn to our presentations. Yep. All right. Okay, and we're going to start with number 9. We start at number 9, the annual comprehensive financial report for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021. And we will recognize Ms. Brewington, Dr. Brewington, I believe, yes, who we met on yesterday, the day before yesterday. Thank you so much. I'm fascinated by your job.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor O'Neill, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem Middleton, and council members. I am Jermaine Brewington, Director of the Audit Services Department. Again, I apologize that you can't see me. We've been told that our video has been deactivated, so bear with us. But I would like to introduce to you Ms. April Adams, a partner with Cherry Beckert LLP, our external auditors. Ms. Adams will give you right now a brief discussion instead of a presentation on the summary of the city's annual comprehensive financial report. I do believe one of the attachments for this agenda item was a copy of their presentation. So, okay, right now it says start my video. Okay, awesome. So now I think, Ms. Adams, you should be able to give your presentation. So what I would like to do is turn the presentation over to Ms. Adams. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and I believe I'm going to share my screen as well, so it should pop up here in a second. Can you guys see the presentation?
Yes.
Well, sorry, I was trying to get it to where I could see it as well. Okay, so good afternoon. Yeah, it's my pleasure to be here to deliver the results of the June 30th, 2020 audit. What I'd like to cover with you today is just to remind you or let you know what the role of the external auditor is versus Jermaine's role. Give you the key highlights and results of the audit. I'd also like to inform you what we do when it comes to internal controls, identify for you what the significant audit areas are. Then I've got a couple of financial results that I pulled from the financial statements. And then I've got a quick summary of what you should take away, and then I'll be glad to take any questions or comments. Okay, so the role of the external auditor. We perform your audit in accordance with the generally accepted auditing standards as well as the government auditing standards. Those standards require that we plan and perform your audit or procedures to obtain reasonable assurance that your financial statements are free from material misstatement. And basically what that means is that we perform what we call a risk-based audit. And that means that we're focusing our procedures on where we deem as your auditors the financial statements to be most at risk or most susceptible to being materially misstated. That also means that we don't test every single transaction that happens throughout the year. Once we've finished all of our procedures, we are required to express an opinion on the financial statements. And in fact, we issue 4 separate opinions as relates to the city's financial statement audit. And so the first one is for the generally accepted auditing standards. We also issue what's called a yellow book opinion. That's the opinion on using the governmental auditing standards. And then the last 2 opinions are related to all the state and federal dollars that the city administers throughout the year. And then finally, the audit standards require us to communicate certain things to you as a board that may have come about during the audit or that we need to make you aware of related to the audit. And so we do that in 2 ways. One is this presentation today, as well as a letter that accompanies your financial statements. So the types of things that we are communicating to you are if there were significant changes in accounting policies, we identify the significant estimates that exist in your financial statements. And then lastly, we identify, well, it's not last, there's lots of things in the letter, but the thing I'm pointing out as significant to you would be any journal entries that were identified as a result of the audit. Okay, so for the highlights, the results of the audit, I'm happy to report that all 4 of those opinions that we issued are what we call unmodified opinions. Those are also known as clean opinions. Those are the highest level of assurance that we can give you as a firm that your financial statements are free from material misstatement as well as in compliance. And the compliance is over those federal and state dollars that you're administering. So that's the best results that you can get when it comes to audit opinions. We did issue 1 significant deficiency related to some cutoff issues related to accounts payable at year end and accounts receivable, as well as the preparation of the CFA, which is the schedule of expenditures of federal and state awards. There was a correction noted by us during the audit. And so that resulted in a deficiency. Management is working on a solution looking at the controls to see how they can strengthen them to prevent those types of errors in the future. For single audit, as I mentioned, the single audit covers the federal and state dollars that are administered and the testing we do related to that. I'm happy to report that we did not have any findings related to all of that testing. And then SAS 114, this is that required communications to use the government that we're required to inform you about. There were no significant changes in accounting policies. The estimates within your financial statements are your allowance for doubtful accounts, your depreciation, which is based on an estimate of the how long the asset will be put in service or their life, we call it the life of the asset. And then the other big estimates in your financial statements are your pension for your employees and your health and benefits that are available to them once they retire, called OPEB. And then the other thing I wanted to point out in the letter is that we did have 2 corrected misstatements. And so those are journal entries that we proposed as a result of the audit that ties in with the significant deficiency. And so because we found those, it indicated to us that there was a control issue or deficiency related to cutoff. And so those 2 go hand in hand. There were no past adjustments. And what that means is that there's a level of materiality that we consider. And so there were no adjustments that were completely immaterial, but not so material that we would need to post them, that we would still want to make you aware of. And so there weren't any of those types of past adjustments. And then the last matter is just to just let you know that as a part of our contract and our proposal, when we proposed to perform the audit procedures, we did commit to using a minority firm as a part of our contract. And so we did use Claude Bogues for 1% of the work. And we did do that as a part of the audit. So we just wanted to confirm and report back to you that we did that. Okay, so for internal controls, so we don't opine on internal controls, but we do and are required to do quite a bit of work for internal controls. And so I just wanted to give you an idea of what we do and how we review internal controls and ultimately what we report. And so what we do is we identify what we deem to be the significant audit areas or significant cycles, I'm sorry. And those are the types of things of how does the city take in cash? How does the city pay vendors or make payments on things? How does cash get dispersed? Payroll is also a significant cycle, as well as the grants. How does the grant income come in and get expensed and recorded? And then lastly, the financial close and reporting. So what that means is how does all the data that gets captured in your financial system ultimately get created and put into the system and then get into the financial statements themselves correctly. And so we look at the controls around that as well. What we do is get all the policies and procedures and take a walkthrough of one transaction from its initiation and walk it all the way through how it gets recorded in the system as well as reported in those financial statements for each one of those cycles. Sometimes during an audit, we can decide whether to test some controls and actually rely upon the operating effectiveness of those controls as part of our assurance and part of our procedures over different audit areas. And so we do that related to the OPEB. Again, that's your health insurance for your retirees, the estimate of what that costs in the future, your LEOSA, which is your separation allowance or pension benefits for your law enforcement officers, and then the elders, which is your pension for all the local government employees of the city. And then on a rotational basis, we test the controls over cash disbursements and payroll. The journal entries is an area where the audit standards require us to take a data dump of all journal entries that happen throughout the year and mine it looking for unusual transactions. And so we do that and we pull a sample looking for and asking for the supporting documentation, looking at the accounts used, looking at the approval process and whether the entry itself makes sense to have been made. And then last, for internal controls, we do take a look at the information technology and what are the controls around the financial system itself. Is it protected by use of passwords? Is it physically protected? And all the things that go with that. And so we ask some questions to ensure that the system's got some general computer controls. Okay, so significant audit areas. As I mentioned, we do that risk-based audit. And so we are focusing our procedures in on where we think the financial statements are most likely to be materially misstated. And most of the time, that's going to be areas that are larger in dollar amount because you got to get to where they're material. And so these first two buckets, the green and the blue, are what we deem to be the significant audit area. And what we're doing for these is that we are testing them substantively. So we are confirming them with a third party. That's the best assurance we can get. Or we're looking at them analytically, looking at the relationships of the numbers, making sure that they're moving in the direction that we expect them to based on what we know that's occurred throughout the year or with, in relation to each other. And then lastly, if we have to, we'll pull a test of details, which means that we're pulling a sample and asking for all the supporting documentation for that group of activity or group of transactions. And I didn't want you to think that we didn't do anything for long-term debt or some of these others listed in the orange bucket, that we just don't deem those to be as high of a risk to be materially misstated. So we are doing procedures, just not as intense as we are in the first two buckets. Okay, so significant audit areas related to single audit. We are required to follow a determination plan to figure out which of all the grant dollars that are received that we need to test as major programs, which then from there we're testing of the 14 compliance requirements, which we figure out which ones are direct and material, and we test those related to each of the programs. So you'll see here, we had quite a few federal major programs to test during the year. and then the one state program for PAL bill. And so we've tested these. And again, I mentioned there was no findings related to any of the administrations, which is really great. All right, so now we're going to move into some financial results. What I've done is just pulled some information from the financial statements. It's very high level. And this first slide is just looking at general fund. So you as a board set a budget for the city to follow when it comes to the general fund. And so this is just reporting out how did the city perform to the budget that the board set. So revenues came in $19 million higher than what was expected. And basically, that's made up of $5 million more in ad valorem, which is also property tax collections than expected. And then there was, I believe, about $14 million of that was sales tax, came in much higher than expected. And we did see that across the board for most places, cities, counties in North Carolina. And the expenditures, they came in under budget by $16.5 million. There's a couple of things going on here that caused that to be the case. The community building function didn't spend, was under budget by $4 million related to some economic development incentives that just didn't occur in the current year. And so those came in under budget. Public safety came in under budget by $6 million due to mainly some vacant positions. And then public services came in under $10 million, and that was due to some maintenance projects being delayed, mainly related to public works, the facility management and parks and rec areas. And so that is just a high level of part of the major things that caused that to be under budget. The other thing I wanted to point out was that the city appropriated the use of fund balance of $9.1 million in the final budget, which means basically they expected revenues to be less than expenditures by $9.1 million. And instead, what really happened because of these under budget and beating budget for revenues, you were able to add back $19.6 million to fund balance at the end of June 30th, 2021. Another point of interest usually is the unassigned fund balance of the general fund. You guys have a policy to maintain 6.7%, which basically makes up 2% of the general fund expenditures for the year. And so I'm happy to report that you're meeting your policy by having 29.8%. I will make a note that the LGC looks for cities to usually be around 25% as a minimum. So it's good that you're above your policy because they're looking for you to be at 25%, even if your policy's at 16.7. Another metric that gets looked at by the LGC is looking for your fund balance available as a percent. And so I'm happy to report here that you're at 40.19%. The average for cities of your size is 46%. So you're right in there with your peers. All right, this is looking at similar information, but just for the water and sewer operating fund. Your operating revenues did not meet budget by $2.7 million. However, there was a significant amount of investment income that was allowed it to pretty much come in even at about $126,000 under budget. And then your expenditures were under budget by $3 million. And again, the same thing with the appropriation of fund balance, $900,000 was projected to be used, but you actually ended up adding back $100,000. This is just a snapshot of your capital assets in general. So you've got $2.1 billion worth of assets. In the current year, you added infrastructure of $61.1 million, land of $5.1 million, furniture or equipment of $20.6 million. And then you've got quite a bit of capital project activity going on. So you've had $110.8 million worth of CIP. And then this is just looking at a snapshot of the long-term debt of the city. You've got $926.7 million worth of debt, including your retirement benefits. So you've got GO bonds, which are general obligation bonds, of $80.5 million, limited obligation bonds of $190.5 million, revenue bonds of $312.8, installment financing, which are just your typical kind of bank loans, of $22.5 million. And then your total of your OPEB and pension and all the retiree kind of benefits is $22 $279.4 million. There was some transactions that happened in debt in the current year. There's new debt of $194.8 million that happened throughout 2021. But you also reduced or refunded, it was either refunding or principal payments made of $234.6 million. Okay, so in summary, here's what you should take away from the presentation. The city received clean opinions, all 4 were clean. There were 3 corrected misstatements, 1 significant deficiency. However, there are really good internal controls in place that are capturing all the financial activity of the city. And this is just my chance to thank management for providing everything that we needed as a part of the audit. It is kind of a relentless ask for about 5 months of information that we're asking to get the audit accomplished. So we just really appreciate being made a priority and getting the information to us to get you a report on time. And now I'll be glad to take any questions or comments.
Any questions?
No questions, just a comment. I just want to appreciate, coming into a city infrastructure that's just so well put together and so well ran. It makes it easier to learn all of this information. This is impressive. This is a sizable city, a sizable infrastructure. And I've seen many audits and many audits and budgets. This is quite impressive, and I just want to thank what we're walking into, staff for doing such an amazing job.
Madam Mayor, thank you. First, let me fully associate myself with the comments of my colleague, Councilmember Williams. Ms. Adams, you made a comment about our management responding to relentless asks. They get a lot of practice with this council. So they are well positioned to deal with relentless asks when the audit comes along. I want to, again, echo just appreciation, Dr. Brewington, and for your whole shop and to the staff. I'm so accustomed, whenever I'm in other contexts, particularly outside of Durham, to hear folks just go on and on about Durham, how well run the city is. We're certified one of the best run cities in the country, and that moniker still is just as applicable. So let me congratulate you, Madam Manager, and to the entire staff, all of our employees that run this city so well, that keep us in the black so we can make the hard decisions and have the arguments. It's a very different argument when you're arguing from a position of financial strength as opposed to deficit. So I want to congratulate the staff. I did have one question about the significant deficiency. I was looking at the listing of federal programs, the American Rescue Plan Act, coronavirus relief funds, federal transit cluster. Could you give us a sense is this what we're talking about, reporting related to these programs, these areas listed here with respect to the deficiency in reporting?
It really had to do with the cutoff of year end. So we look for all the expenses for 2021 recorded in 2021. And we ran into one expense that happened after year end that didn't get added back to 2021 when it should have been. Mm-hmm. So there was that issue. There was an issue with on the other side of receivables, we were missing a revenue that should have been accrued. I'm sorry, it was a revenue that was recorded that should have been a liability, meaning you hadn't quite completed the earnings process for it yet. Those were the misstatements. And I say that was related to a grant, but it wasn't really the administration of the grant. It was just the recording of the revenue at the right time.
Gotcha. So everything I said at the beginning, let me just underscore. You guys are great. Thank you for a great job. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Any other comments? I too want to echo, this is, if you could see my smile under this mask, is literally from here to here. To have a city this large with the kind of funds that come in and out, and to come away with an audit like this is absolutely amazing. I congratulate you all on, this is where the rubber meets the road. This is what you call a well-run oil machine. And so I thank you to the audit department and to all of the folks that are in the department to make it happen, and to our city manager and all of you all who have done this work well. Thank you for allowing us to come into such a nice situation. And now we're going to turn back to Ms. Youngblood. She's here now. Oh.
Recording in progress.
They are back. Madam Mayor, are you guys able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay, you disappeared for a minute. I just wanted to say I hope the comments from council are complete, but I just wanted to acknowledge the finance department, because Dave Hickman, Christine Collum, and that team were just instrumental. We're the project managers of the audit, but Dave Hickman and his team actually did the work. And so I just wanted, I couldn't leave this meeting without acknowledging their work in this process.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I
Thank
think
you.
for your presentation and for your hard work along with your staff. I think that will conclude this presentation, but I do believe we're returning back to Ms. Youngblood, who is leaving us, so we'll give them a second to try to get her on. I think they said she was driving at this point, so for a second.
Hi, I am here looking for a place to pull over. Good afternoon. Not hearing anything.
Regina, can you hear us now?
I can hear you now.
Great, we are here. We see you.
So, Madam Manager, Regina's team hosted an event for her. So we are integrating this in part of her schedule. She did not hear the remarks that you made to her and about her publicly. So she's anticipating an introduction. So that's the cue she's waiting for.
Thank you for helping us in that space. Ms. Youngblood, prior to your arrival, I made some comments about your service here. I wanted to thank you for the 8 years of excellent service that you provided this government and this community. We worked together that whole time, and I appreciate the innovation that you brought to the organization, and I am extremely excited for this new opportunity that you have in front of you on the West Coast. We hope that you will stay in touch with us, and you will keep us in your Rolodex. We might have some questions here or there, but we want to give the community as well as you an opportunity to say goodbye and farewell. You will be here for a few more days to the end of the month, but this is the last time that we are going to have an opportunity to have you speak. So glad you could join us, and take it away.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Madam Manager, Madam Mayor, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, and the remaining council members. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for the opportunity to have served this wonderful community for the last 8 years. I am so proud of the work that my team and I have done. I've learned quite a lot under Wanda's leadership, and the foundational learning that I got here is going to definitely serve me well in my next endeavor.
I met Ms. Youngblood on yesterday, day before yesterday, when we had our presentation. So I would thank you for your service, but I would defer to either our Mayor Pro Tem and Ms. Jillian Johnson as well to give some remarks on our behalf. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. With all due respect to the manager, Regina may have been one of the most important people in this organization because she told us about our money and our benefits early on. So all due respect, Madam Manager. With all seriousness, Regina, thank you so much on behalf of a grateful city for your service. Much of what you do is unheralded. It's not kind of the stuff that gets the bells and whistles out in the public, but it is absolutely necessary because you have played such a key role in taking care of those that take care of us. You've been a caretaker to the caretakers of our city, and for that, thank you. She's very soft-spoken, and I used to think that she was soft-spoken, but that's actually a tactic because I learned that when you're that way, folk are drawn and they are still and they are intent on listening to you. And that's a tactic and a skill I hope to develop as I get older. But I just want to thank you for always just showing such professionalism, great temperament, and incredible subject matter excellence and knowledge. You know your stuff, and we are jealous of that West Coast town that you're heading to, but know that you go with a grateful city behind you, with our love, with our appreciation. We know you're going to rep really well and really hard for Durham, and may your next chapter be your greatest chapter. Thank you so much for everything you've done for us, and we're just a call away. God bless you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you so much, Regina. I am so sorry to see you go, though this is an incredible opportunity for you, I'm sure, to move up. You've done such an incredible job here at the city. I remember you walking us through a number of really detailed presentations around pay plan changes and step plans and really complicated material, doing that huge analysis of the entire city's pay scale and all of the levels that folks were at, and then explaining it all to council members who had no idea coming into it. And you were really, I found your ability to explain those things and help us all to understand and help us through that really complicated process to be really exemplary, and wanted to appreciate you for all the work that you've done here at the city. You've been here the whole time I've been here, so I'm a little bit nervous about you leaving. But yeah, just really want to appreciate your service and wish you the best of luck on the West Coast in your next endeavor. I'm not surprised that those folks over there wanted to get their hands on you. Thank you so much.
I'd also open it up to anyone else who wants to wish her well.
I just want to echo those comments from Mayor Pro Tem Middleton and Councilmember Johnson, acknowledging, I think that the pay study in and of itself was when I came in, and it was daunting, and I really appreciate the opportunity to learn exactly how awesome this organization is, and seeing how meticulously our staff specifically in human resources, poured over exactly who sat where and restructuring all of that, job descriptions and so many layers. I think that I had a great respect for the work, and I appreciate the work that Regina has done in leading that effort. I also appreciate the kind of opportunities she's created around the mayor's 5K race and other opportunities to kind of get health and wellness included into what we do during the day. And I'm hoping that someone's gonna take the mantle on that. Just acknowledging it's a great opportunity for us to get together in a very social, health-focused way. And so thank you. Thank you, Regina.
Anyone else? Durham City wishes you well. We wish you well, Ms. Youngblood. Thank you so much for your service here. Thank you so much. All right, we will turn our attention to matter number 24. We will have the 2021 third quarter crime report presentation from our chief.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and Mr. Mayor Pro Tem Middleton, Durham City Council, our wonderful city manager, Paige, and the rest of city staff. Good afternoon. So I come to you today to provide a presentation for our 2021 third quarter report, which covers the periods of July through September 2021. So I am going to endeavor to share my screen, and so just be patient if we have some glitches. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. So as I said before, this report covers the Durham Police Department's 5 performance measures, and those are as follows. Part 1, violent crime. Part 1, property crime, our clearance rates, response times to priority 1 calls, and staffing levels. And so there's some additional highlights, and those are noted in the written report, the full written report accompanying this slideshow. Okay. All right, so overall, our reported Part 1 violent crime, and again, that's homicide, rape, robbery, and aggravated assault, was down by 11% during the first 9 months of 2021. And that's compared to the same period of time in 2020. There were increases in homicides and sexual assaults. There were 38 homicides during this period in the first 9 months of 2021 compared to 24 in the same period of 2020. And that equates to about a 58% increase. There were also 3 justifiable homicide cases and 2 negligent manslaughter cases, both of which were cleared by arrest. And so currently, just so that you know, there are currently 43 homicides. And 29 of those of the 2021 homicides are still open. 5 cases from prior years were actually cleared during this quarter. So 4 in 2020 and 1 in 2019. The number of reported sexual assaults did increase by 18% during the first 9 months of 2021 compared to the same period of 2020. So we didn't have an evidence of a serial event or a serial rapist. More than 1/4 of our cases reported during 2021 occurred in prior years. I will say that while we did see an increase in our reported sexual assaults, what we can say is that we are starting to see more victims of sexual assault coming forward and reporting their victimization, and oftentimes those are belated cases, but we are very fortunate in that they are feeling much more comfortable with our staff to be able to come forward and trust us with their victimization. So our robberies did drop significantly by 15% during the first 9 months of 2021. 75% of those were from persons, and 25% were from commercial robberies. 44% of the commercial robberies were convenience stores within our city. The percentage of robberies that we did have were committed with firearms dropped from 59% in 2020 to 52% in 2021. 38% of our robberies from persons involved Hispanic victims. The department has saw that increase and actually continued to provide outreach to our Hispanic community through our Hispanic liaison officer. We did increase our social media outreach as well as some other community events with our community resource officers. And so on September 10th, we held the Coffee with a Cop event at La Superior. October the 9th, we held an event, La Gran Fiesta event at the Crossroads at 501. And we continue to hold those throughout, and we've got more planned. Investigators did arrest 2 men in November in connection with 23 armed robberies, and many of which did occur in the third quarter. That was a lot of combined effort between different units, and that was a significant arrest. So we do compare our department's clearance rates to those of other departments that are similar in size. As you know, we are in the FBI's population category of 250,000 to roughly 500,000. And that's how our crime and crime rates are categorized. The 2019 FBI statistics are our most recent ones. As you know, generally FBI is about a year or so behind in posting those statistics. So when we compare clearance rates, what we've seen is that our clearance rates were better than average for cities our size in robberies, overall Part 1 violent crimes, and all Part 1 property crimes. So those being your burglaries, larcenies, motor vehicle thefts, and overall Part 1 property crimes. However, we were worse than average. So we were a little worse in homicide, sexual assault, and our aggravated assault clearances. That can be attributed somewhat to our staffing and just the incidence of crimes that are being reported and are occurring. Our clearance rates for the first 9 months are better than our overall 2020 clearance rates in all categories with the exception of sexual assaults. Our target are 23% property crime clearance and 50% violent crime clearance rates. In April, the Saki cold case backlog project was delayed by the state lab. And if you recall, we received Saki grant in 2019, I believe. It's a $1 million grant that was awarded, and we have recently been re-awarded or issued another $500,000 to continue this critical work. And we will not be receiving our lab results until winter of 2022. That is due to the Saki cold case backlog that's occurring in the state lab. Okay, so I'm going to show you a video that was a product of an effort in relation to our anti-gun violence video, and our Durham Police Department officers, Sergeant Brigante and Corporal Green, share some personal insights about their work to keep Durham safe and why the community's help is key to reducing gun crimes. And we also are fortunate to have been able to have some of our victims also making an appearance and really providing their perspective as well and how gun violence has impacted their lives. Our anti-gun violence campaign did start the first part of September and actually ran through the end of September. We received nearly 10,000 views on YouTube by the end of September. And so we continue to run the campaign. It's available on YouTube, but also on Facebook as well.
My younger sister was someone that never got involved with bad people. She was a selfless person, and her life was taken away by her boyfriend due to gun violence in front of her 3 younger kids.
I was in my car. I heard loud gunfire. Didn't know where. I got shot, was dramatic, and experience I couldn't, want anybody to live through. Gun violence can happen any given time, anywhere. I'm truly blessed to be alive today.
The person that did this to my sister is still on the loose, and we want justice for my sister and for my nephews. We don't want for this to happen to another woman out there. Don't stay quiet. Don't be afraid to talk.
I like being there for people. I like when my investigators and I go out there, that we're out there with a specific purpose, and that's to try to bring somebody to justice on behalf of a citizen to get a violent criminal off the streets.
I'm born and raised in Durham. I still have family members here, classmates, friends. It's personal for me.
We see on the news constantly the numbers of shootings is in the hundreds. Last year it was pushing 1,000. So you would think that around every corner there's somebody with a gun ready to shoot. But through our investigations, we've learned that the percentage of the population that's committing a lot of these shootings is very low compared to the number of shootings we're actually having. Members of the community can help make it safer. If they've seen something in their neighborhood, please call us, let us know.
There are creative ways to be able to solve crimes, and that's through anonymous information through avenues such as Crime Stoppers.
Getting that information in the hands of police and investigators, it's critical, because a lot of stuff we can have ideas of what happened, but if we can't prove it in court, justice isn't going to be served. Just give us the information to help point us in the right direction.
Fantastic work on that video. Overall, reported Part 1 property crime, burglary, larceny, and motor vehicle theft was down by 10% during the first 9 months of 2021. So our burglaries were also down by 21.5%. This included a 24% decrease in residential burglaries and a 4% decrease in commercial burglaries. The top 3 locations for commercial burglaries were specifically specialty stores, restaurants, and convenience stores. Our larcenies were comprised more than half, or 63% of all of our reported Part 1 crime. Overall, larcenies were down by 4%. 45% of all of our reported larcenies were from motor vehicles or involved auto parts and accessories. And so what we see here is this trend that we've had, break-ins or larcenies from motor vehicles. Typically, many of them, most of them are left unlocked. And so we've seen that increase, not just here in Durham, but nationwide. More than a quarter of our larcenies, or 28%, involve shoplifting. So more than half of our guns that were stolen this year, about 53% or so, were taken during break-ins to motor vehicles. So, and most of those vehicles were left unlocked. Many of them, again, as we said, unlocked. Those individuals saw the opportunity to steal that gun, and the gun was removed. Honda Accords, as we've heard time and time again, were by far the most stolen motor vehicle model during the first 9 months of 2021. And then that's kind of been a trend that has continued. We don't really know why exactly, but it has been a continuing trend. Almost half, or 49% of the vehicles stolen this year had keys left in the car and or had the engine running. This time of year, folks like to leave their vehicles running as they warm up, especially this morning was particularly cold. And so we've been trying to remind everyone, do not leave your cars unattended while you're warming them up. Stay with your cars if you're going to warm them up. And 84% of our vehicles stolen during the third quarter have been recovered. So again, we compare our department's clearance rates to those of other departments our size. And so wanted to just give you and show you our clearance rates compared FBI 2019 clearance rates, and then 2021 third quarter as compared to 2020. Priority 1 calls for service. There were about 6,000 Priority 1 calls for service in the first 9 months of 2021, which was a 1% decrease from the same time period in 2020. Our average response time was 6.2 minutes. It did not meet our target of 5.8 minutes. So we can attribute that to staffing. We also can attribute that to an increase in call volume from this time last year. So we're starting to really reawaken and come out of COVID. There's more traffic on the roadways, and we are starting to see a little bit of an increase in our response time. We did, however, answer 51.39% of the Priority 1 calls in less than 5 minutes in the first 9 months of 2021. However, that did not meet our target of 57%. Staffing. So at the end of the third quarter, September 30th, our sworn staffing was at 87%. It was 93% same time last year, 2020. At that point, our staffing was much higher. And again, we are starting to see just a decrease in our staffing rate. Between January 1st, 2021 and November 30th, 2021, 36 officers have resigned and then 24 of those officers have retired. Of those that have resigned, 24 have left for employment with other law enforcement agencies. 5 of those were a result of retirement, and the remainder resigned for different reasons. So, they were moving away or leaving for another job opportunity with a higher salary, or leaving the profession entirely. 12 of our non-sworn staff members left the department between January 1st, 2021 and January 1st, 2022. Our non-sworn staffing was at 88% at the end of September 2021. And then it was at 91% at the end of 2020. So currently, our current non-sworn staffing is 89% with 14 vacancies. We did have 4 new recruits that graduated successfully from basic law enforcement training, class number 53 on September the 8th. We do currently have 10 recruits in basic law enforcement training. It did start middle of September 16th. So we continue to actively recruit during the pandemic. Throughout this year, we've continued to actively recruit. We did a lot of our recruiting virtually. We're changing the way that we recruit. So really relying on a lot of data that will strategically point us to where we need to go. And that is really helps us tremendously in being able to maximize our leverage as well as being able to bring more officers in. The recruiting unit has held monthly pop-up recruiting events. So we did we've done some at Starbucks. We've been out to South Point. We are going to be tapping into our resources with our local colleges and universities, as well as looking at recruiting from current basic law enforcement training classes at technical colleges. The Durham Police Department received 37 U visa requests during the third quarter of 2021. 76% of those U visa requests were approved. 9 requests were denied. And so, we do want to really make our U visas available. We want to make sure that we are informing our entire community about the U visa process, and also what are the requirements for a U visa. So because of our continued commitment to this program, we are going to be hosting several forums in which we will be going out into the community to really discuss the purpose of U visa, as well as how to complete a U visa application. We see some that are submitted that are not incomplete. Rather than reject those, our staff will reach out and assist the applicant in completing, and then we will also then process a lot of those applications that come in incomplete here within the PD. We do not allow an incomplete application to stop the process. National Night Out occurred this quarter. We had a great time. Durham always does National Night Out big, and Durham did not disappoint this year. So our Durham Police Department employees, our sworn and non-sworn staff participated in the event that was held on August the 3rd, more than 40 neighborhoods, which was tremendous compared to the fact that we were still, you still have COVID anxiety, right? So this event has always been a fantastic way for us to really get out and meet the community where they are and engage in a non-law enforcement manner and really just enjoy being around our entire community. The Durham Police Department's Police Athletic League, PALS, as you all know it, continues to be an active part of our organization as well as community outreach during the third quarter. We have not let COVID stop us. Community outreach, the PAL program is tremendously important to our overall vision here and what we're trying to do at the Durham Police Department. The PAL soccer camp was held the first week of August 9th at TA Grady Recreation Center. The kids enjoyed it, and you can see some pictures there. The first photo, and then 13 of our youth attended the camp, which was led by 3 high school youth who coach participant in basic soccer skills and strategy. That footwork is important. As part of our PAL Venturing program, about 20 of our youth from 4 Durham Housing Authority communities met regularly to experience different parts of Durham. In September, several of those youngsters from the program attended a Duke men's soccer game against Howard University, historically Black college and university, in September. They got to meet players and one of the coaches and enjoyed the game. And so the second photo shows you that there. And then finally in September, PAL's participants and PAL officers attended the Durham Bulls game. We love our partnership with the Durham Bulls and really got to take selfies with Willie Bull. I have not experienced that yet, but hopefully if I'm fortunate, I will. During the third quarter, PAL also held basketball camps, sessions, golf classes, baseball camps, girls camp, which is a collaborative effort with Neighborhood Improvement Services. That also started during third quarter. We continue our outreach with participating in several outreach programs during the third quarter. On September the 18th, officers from the Community Services Division and employees from the Durham Parks and Recreation held a bicycle rodeo at Walltown Recreation Center. You got to know how to ride a bike and how to ride it right. And one of the best ways to do that is to have a little fun while learning those lessons with our officers. Stations were set up and Durham Police Department officers taught our kiddos about basic bike maintenance, how to properly brake, overall bike safety while riding your helmet and fitting your helmet, and bike use. So each participant did receive a free helmet from NCDOT, Bicycle and Pedestrians Division's Helmet Initiative Program. Tremendous program that keeps everyone safe. Then on September 17th, 7 of our officers from the Community Engagement Unit, or CEU, partnered with Sleep in Heavenly Peace and Strata Solar to build 20 beds for children in need. So this has been an ongoing effort, a partnership between our CEU officers and Sleep in Heavenly Peace to build these beds for our children since the fall of 2018. And they have helped build over 250 beds. And that is tremendous. And so officers will also see it through and see the initiative through and deliver those beds as well. Then September 2nd, recruiting unit and selective enforcement team officers went to Meals on Wheels, answered an urgent call for assistance, and they helped deliver meals to more than 150 people in Durham. And certainly we don't do it for the accolades. We simply do it because it's the right thing to do and we love our community. And so that concludes our third quarter report. You can find us on all of our DPD social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And at this point in time, I will entertain any questions from council. Thank you.
Chief, before
Yes,
we
sir.
have any questions.
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to welcome you back to Durham. Welcome back home. We are so glad that you are here. I was, I think, a district court judge when I first met you back in the day of Steve Chalmers and Chief Lopez. And so I'm just so grateful to see you back in Durham and in charge. So welcome, welcome, welcome. I know that you'll be sworn in tomorrow night. If you could give us some details about that. And I'd also ask our citizens and residents of Durham here to give you some grace as you learn or relearn this city again, and you relearn all of your colleagues. And I know that you're making a physical move back into the city. And so we're going to, we look forward to great things from you, but there is a human under that uniform that has a life, who is also a police chief. And so we want to know that you are safe mentally, physically, and psychologically. And I just thank you for accepting this new assignment. So welcome to Durham. Welcome back.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I am so proud. Thank you so much for that, for those wonderful, warm words. It is, I did watch your press briefing, and I want to tell you thank you. Just thank you for your words and just for being so very real. I connect with you on so many levels. So my swearing in, I did forget to mention that. It's a little hard for me to talk about those things, but my swearing in will be tomorrow. You know, I'm an Eagle. In CCU, I am an Eagle. So we will be at 6 p.m. tomorrow evening at the student union, so the new student union. And I am so very thankful for North Carolina Central University staff for really helping my staff as we work through this and plan this event. So it will be tomorrow at 6 p.m. And we also plan to, I just got handed a note that we plan to be live streaming also on YouTube for anyone that wishes to view it in the comfort and warmth of your home.
I'll see you in person tomorrow night, Chief. I wouldn't miss it. I wouldn't miss it. So I will open it up to my colleagues and for any other comments to welcome her here to Durham, back to Durham. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you so much, Madam Mayor. Chief Andrews, let me add my word of welcome and appreciation to you on behalf of a grateful city. To you, I was really, well, let me again also congratulate our city manager, Manager Page, on what I think was a master stroke of a hire. Chief Andrews, you and I have been conversation partners for some years now about police reform and aligning policing with the values of the community in which they police. You were Captain Andrews back then, and your shoulder is a lot more decorated now, and your collar is a lot more decorated now, so congratulations on the way your career path has evolved. I also want to thank you very early in your tenure here, very early. Our city was faced with a very dark challenge on Good Friday at South Point Mall, and I watched your command presence very early in your tenure and watched how you provided leadership and your command staff and all of the men and women under your command. So I want to commend you and ask that you would just pass on an entire city's appreciation for the way they served us under some really impossible circumstances on that day and the busiest shopping day of the year. So thank you for your leadership then and for the work you've done. I also want to, I know, and I'm going to ask a little bit about the staffing issue. I was struck by given what we're hearing about staffing issues at our police department, how robust your engagement still is with community engagement. I mean, these are folk that are sometimes working double shifts who are still finding time to go ride bicycles with kids and play in neighborhoods. I think that speaks to the culture of our department and the values that our department holds dear. We're very spoiled here in Durham, Chief, because we're not just used to having police chiefs that are experts in law enforcement matters, but we expect our police chiefs also to be thought leaders, to be beacons for the country, to not only patrol our streets, but to engage with our community and have robust conversations on what policing in the 21st century and what policing a city like Durham would look like. And I think that you are well positioned to not only be an excellent police chief, but also a thought leader here in Durham and around the country. So I'm just really excited about your tenure, and I know I speak for an entire city and the council when we say we have your back and we're here to support you. I do want to ask, there have been some reports about the possibility of reassigning investigators and other officers that have specialized job descriptions to put them out on patrol in order to deal with the staffing issues that we're experiencing. And you've already alluded to some of that with the response time targets that we have for the department. And since the reports are out there, I thought if you want to take an opportunity to speak to that or confirm or whatever, give us some sense of what are we looking at in terms of bolstering our patrol capabilities.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Middleton. Thank you so much for your words of support and encouragement, and your just the graceful way in which you hype us up. So thank you for that. And I'm actually very glad you asked that question. So when I got here, one of the first things that I started doing was meeting every weekend with patrol officers. On Saturdays and Sundays during their training shifts, I would actually come in and we have just very heart-to-heart conversations with our patrol officers. And I found out a lot. They are not afraid to speak up and speak out, and I found out a lot. And so that was one of the ways for me to be able to gauge the temperature of the ones that are out there serving and protecting in these times. And so one of the things that they said to me was, listen, we just need some relief. We need some help, right? And so along with my executive staff, we sat down and I issued them a challenge of, let's come up with a plan in which we could help relieve some of the pressure that they were feeling on the street, right? And also, in turn, that would help us retain some of our officers that were on that cusp of leaving the department. And so our executive staff went forward, utilized our internal staff here. We looked at Power BI and really weighed what are our peak hours, right? When are the violent crimes happening? What are the peak hours for call volume? And then we sat down and said, okay, so how do we put more officers on the street? And we came up with a very temporary program in which the ranks from investigators and above, so that would be your folks in specialized services, and all the way up to the chief's office, so all the way up to the chief of police. We ended up putting together a plan in which between January and March, staff would sign up to work 4 days. And we formulated a structure around that in which we were actually putting more officers on the street and not compromising their workload, the task that they have to do, and their day-to-day work. But we were able to put them on the street four shifts, 4 days out of in the 3-month period as a whole. And so we were able to do that, and that'll be beginning in January. January 1st is when it begins. We've all up here signed up. I will be riding for 4 days as well. And so we're looking forward to that, but we're really looking forward to being able to relieve some of that pressure while we start to really get the momentum going to retain our officers and recruit officers as well.
Thank you for that. So the chief of police might be in a patrol car pulling up beside us at a red light?
Yes, sir. I will be. I told them, I said, I no longer, I don't type as well as I used to, but I can check in on a call from time to time. So yes. So you'll see me out and about.
Well, we appreciate your willingness to do that. And thank you so much for those dates and for giving us a primer on what that initiative is going to look like. So we're going to have a report come before us, I think, in early January about compensation for our officers, for our first responders. Besides money, is there anything else that you need or that you think we can do or should be doing to bolster our recruiting position here in Durham? Not just to get bodies, but to get excellent people that will police according to our values, who are top of the class. That's what we're used to here in Durham. But besides money and pay increases, is there anything else that you think the council should be aware of in these coming months?
So I would say support. Just saying the words that you've said today, you will never be able to fully understand how much that means to the rank and file, how much that means also to our non-sworn staff. Just those words that you said today, it means so much. And I wish I could fully put that in words and describe that. But I will also be working closely with Deputy City Manager Ferguson, as well as Manager Page, on a long-term initiative to maybe help identify some more, kind of internal things that we can put in place, and also maybe some external needs that would help us retain and recruit. So that will be more to come on that one, but I will tell you, it's just the support means a lot.
Well, thank you for that, Chief. And we know that the honeymoon period is very short. You come in at a very challenging time, not just for Durham, but for our country, as we're coming out of COVID, and we noticed this numbers trending upward in violent crime nationwide. My final question is, and this comes, folk talk to us all the time, residents and citizens, as they should, as their elected leaders, and anecdotally, and I'm wondering if you can speak on it. Anecdotally, I'm hearing that, and even from some patrol officers, actually, I'm hearing that we're finding that the caliber of weapons that are being employed on our streets are getting bigger. The type of weapons that you're facing and that you're recovering. Are you finding that? I know you've been here for a minute, you're still unpacking, but are you finding the lethality of these weapons and the caliber of the weapons to be more impressive than they've been in the past?
So what I can say is that the sheer number of weapons that are out there is staggering. The number of weapons that we are seizing on routine traffic stops. I do know that there are high-powered weapons out there. That is a fact. But I think now it's just the magnitude that are out there, that are available, and people are carrying them, and they're using them to commit these crimes without a second thought. So that's really what I would say to you on that. I don't have the caliber and what types, but I know that there's a lot of weapons out there. And just to be able to seize the number that we've seized on mostly traffic stops is significant.
Well, Chief, I'll end here and allow my other colleagues to get in. But again, thank you so much for your report today. Congratulations again on your assumption of command. Please pass on our regards to all of the men and women under your command, and we're here if we need you. If you need us, we know we'll be talking many more times again. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I yield back.
Thank you, sir.
Is there anyone else? Councilman Reese. and followed by-
Thank you, Mayor and Neal. Chief Andrews, welcome. You did a great job on your first crime report as our new police chief. I've seen a handful of these over the last 6 years, and I think you did a fantastic job. I also wanted to apologize that I won't be able to make your swearing in. Unfortunately, I just found out about this like a couple days ago, and there's a thing I can't move. So I apologize, but I know you'll have the good wishes of our entire city with you at NC Central tomorrow night, and I wish you all the best with your event. I just wanted to say, to kind of underscore some things that the Mayor Pro Tem mentioned a couple of minutes ago. It seems clear that not just in the police department, but across the city of Durham in our local government, we have a couple of areas where staffing is a real concern. And I want to thank the Mayor Pro Tem for identifying the very real problem in our public safety departments, especially the police department. And you, in your report, you identified the staffing concerns. They're very real. Every member of this council understands that. And so we're going to have to do some things to try to make these positions a little bit more attractive in the marketplace. And I think every member of the council understands that something's got to give there. It doesn't really matter if crime is down 11%, which, by the way, is remarkable. I pulled last year's third quarter report. Violent crime was up 23% when we heard from the department in the third quarter report last year. So this is a pretty great report from that perspective, but obviously more people are dying in our city and response times are increasing. And so the fact that we are looking, next month we will receive a report from staff with some potential solutions on the pay side, I think is really important, not just for the police department, for other public safety departments, but we're going to need to look at that citywide and kind of prioritize the departments that need help first. And obviously our public safety departments like the police department are going to be near the top of that list. So thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Middleton, for highlighting those problems. And I know that's something that we're going to be working on in the weeks and months ahead. I also wanted to just say how grateful I am for the department's continuing support for the U-Visa program. This is a program that we have been advocating for a number of years now as a council, and I'm glad that the handoff from our previous chief to our new chief has not changed the mission of our department in terms of being welcome and opening. And Chief Andrews, I really appreciated your letting us know that when an application comes in incomplete, that you guys make sure you work with the applicant to get that finished. These are just so important for people who've been the victims of crime to be able to come out of the shadows and help the police department as best they can and to make a life for themselves here in Durham. So thank you for that. The last thing I wanted to just mention real quick is that over the last couple of years, we've seen an alarming increase in crimes of domestic violence. I appreciate the continued updates we get in the quarterly reports about those crimes. Just wanted to say, Durham has made some real investments recently in the kind of broader infrastructure for helping the victims of domestic violence leave abusive situations and participate in the criminal justice aspect of these cases. I know that those investments put Durham in a really good place in terms of supporting domestic crime victims as they try to come forward and move on. But I just wanted to make sure that we highlighted those efforts and know that folks who are in difficult situations, that we have support here in the city for folks who are facing those difficult situations. And I know that that's something that will continue to get to receive your attention as we continue to see through the pandemic, and as I don't know if we're emerging or we're entering a new crisis or a new period of the pandemic, but as this time goes on, we're continuing to see more and more reports of crimes of domestic violence, and the statistics bear that out. So I know that's gonna be something that you focus on as well. Lastly, I just wanted to say, with respect to what else we can do to help with recruiting, please don't hesitate to reach out to us individually. We all have different ideas about what keeps communities safe. We all have different ideas about how we can spend the money that we collect from taxpayers to do that. We have lots of great kind of ideas in the community safety department to try to relieve some of the call pressure on police officers if we can get that department up and running and well funded. But ultimately, we will always need some level of law enforcement response to respond to some of the most violent crimes that occur in our community. And we just want to make sure we do everything to make sure that you have the tools you need to do that in a way that's consistent with our city's values. And I know that you want the same thing. That's all I had to say, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Reese. And yes, you will be missed, but I know you'll be there in spirit, and that's what matters the most. So thank you for your comments. I will tell you, I agree with you. Ditto, ditto, ditto on everything that you said. We're looking forward to really fostering and growing that relationship with the Community Safety Department. I've had some great conversations with Director Smith. So just looking forward to what the future holds. So thank you for that.
Mayor, I know there's one other thing I wanted to mention, and that is that if you look at I pulled the last couple of third quarter reports this morning, and if you look at the clearance rates, despite the staffing problems, despite the increase in homicides and sexual assault, our clearance rates are so much better than they were 2 years ago or even last year. And that is a credit to our police department investigators, and also I think probably a community coming together and saying that we're not going to stand for this anymore. And I think we're going to need a lot more of that as we hopefully emerge soon from the pandemic. That's all. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Reese. Councilman Williams?
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, some of the comments that I was going to actually make were mentioned already, but I also wanted to say welcome back. You're checking off all the boxes. You're just getting it all right. You're moving back to Durham. You've already come back to Durham. And, you are an Eagle. You'll be sworn in the new union. We have a real union now. Also, I may be serving tables tomorrow night at work, so I plan to be there, but as of right now, we have a huge party coming in, so I may be serving tables. But if not, if I can sneak out, I will do so, and I promise I'll be there if I can. So I've been saying often, police officers are humans too. They're people too when they take, before they put the badge on, and I view them as such. I have a lot of friends who serve right now. And I understand human behavior. I think what I'm most concerned about, and Councilman Reese mentioned this, but this pandemic, I think for the first time in our lifetime, we are seeing the effects of cabin fever and how it could physically and psychologically have an impact on us as people. And I'm concerned when and if this moment comes where we declare the pandemic over, if that ever comes, what's going to happen? Because folks are tired of being shut up in the house. They're going to come out, which is great. But there are some folks that are held up inside right now, and it's psychologically impacting them. And I was wondering, is that a conversation that's happening, the mental health impact on the community in regards of how COVID has played a part, as well as the mental health impact on the officers as humans and still trying to do their job? Is that conversation being had? And if so, how's that going? And I know that, you said support. You have that, despite how diverse, our perspective on community safety can evolve. I know you have the support all around, and I'm sure we can provide that. But I would love to hear, just your perspective on how the mental health impact is coming along on officers as humans, as well as the community.
Thank you, Councilmember Williams. We know that wave of post-COVID, right, is going to come back. And we are correct. We are starting to see an increase in some of our calls for people that are in a mental health crisis that need more services. And we've started to really have those conversations with our officers just internally, making sure that they are aware, you know, that we have peer support for the Durham Police Department, that when we go on calls, that our emergency chaplains are available, not just for, you know, our officers, but for our community, right? It's very, very important that we make people aware that it's okay to not be okay. And it's okay to ask for help. And so we're doing a lot of check-ins with officers. We are making sure that our emergency chaplains are on scenes at these critical calls for the purpose of just being there, right? And just being there and being available to have the conversation, and even making sure that the resources that we are offering after the events are available, are accessible to all that's involved, even if that means that we go where they are, right? We go to them. And so that's going to be an ongoing discussion. We're going to be sitting down and really talking about what does peer support look like now, and what are the best practices for the future, and how can we improve on that. So that's going to be a continued conversation, because, you know, we are going to be post-COVID, is going to be a continued conversation on the effects that it has on our first responders, as well as our community as a whole.
Thank you so much for that. Looking forward to having you here and continuing to work with you. And I don't know where to look, so pardon me for looking all around, but I'm talking to you, and I look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Councilwoman Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It is a little awkward. I feel like I'm talking to myself, but we will get used to this new hybrid world. Thank you so much, Chief, for your report, and welcome back to Durham. We're happy to have you back here in the Bull City. A lot of my questions have already been discussed, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, but one of the slides that showed the number of homicides and aggravated assaults from 2020 to 2021. I remember back in 2021 looking at that data and thinking, looking at the sharp increase in aggravated assaults, and especially in assaults with a gun, and the relatively low number of fatalities that had resulted from those shootings, and thinking, this is kind of odd, and I don't imagine that this is going to continue. And now, of course, we are in a situation where, even though we have had fewer assaults and fewer shootings than in 2020, we've seen double the number of fatalities. You talked a little bit about the different kinds of weapons that are on the streets right now, higher caliber weapons, which might have an impact, unfortunately, on those fatality numbers. I was wondering if you had any other thoughts as to what might be causing the trend in more of the shootings that we're seeing this year being fatal.
Thank you for that. I really will say that I see you, and so don't worry. I can see, and we're having our conversation, and I appreciate you. So thank you for your comments. You know, I really think that it really boils down to accessibility. I also believe that many of our shooting incidents that we're having involves multiple rounds being fired. And so there's more, almost a more violent element to the shootings that we're having. And I don't know at this point, you know, really how to curb the number of bullets being fired, right? But how do we really keep folks from feeling like that they even have to pick that gun up in the first place? And that's really what we are going to be focused on, is how do we do that, but also how do we address the violence once it occurs, in forms of, you know, prosecution and other avenues with our community. So really, I think it's the guns, but it's the number of bullets being fired that really has made those shootings. You know, shootings are already deadly, right? Have the potential to be deadly. But when you're shooting multiple rounds, I mean, it's hard to survive something like that.
Thank you, Chief. That's really helpful context for us. And thank you again for coming back to Durham. I'm sorry to add to the trifecta of folks who won't be able to be at your swearing in. I'm going to be out of town, but I look forward to working with you and appreciate your service. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Councilwoman.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Chief. I appreciate the presentation today. Welcome back to Durham. I agree with many of what my colleagues have already said and just wanted to reiterate, we are taking up the police pay. I think everyone on council is very well aware we'll be taking that up in January. We know that is a component of a potential component of our vacancy rate. But I also just want to reiterate, while not great for you individually, I think you are going to be able to hear a lot more information, as is your chief executives there in the next several months from a lot of our patrol officers on what it is that would help support them in their jobs besides pay. And as you think through your recruitment and retention strategy, and this is something that I've already shared with Manager Page, please let us know what support you need around that. Sometimes folks are shy to ask. Please don't be shy to ask. We're here to support you and that department, and we want the best talented pool of folks we can get in Durham from wherever they may come. So I just want to tell you that you have my support on that side of it. Additionally, I just wanted to say thank you around the U visa. The nice component of that is now that we will have an immigrant legal defense fund, so when someone is actually a victim of crime in the city and they've been able to get a U visa, they will also be able to seek the legal counsel with public funds to help close that loop, which will give them a pathway to having documentation, which we know is critically important to so many folks in Durham when we think about access to jobs, access to a more full and dignified life in the United States. So I just wanted to share that with the community more broadly. I unfortunately will also not be there on Friday evening. I know it will be a wonderful event, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Councilmember Caballero. Thank you for your words, kind words. And yes, you will be missed, but again, you'll be there in spirit, and I know that. So looking forward to working with you as well. I will tell you the U visa program, when I was here prior, I was one of the staff that facilitated that program and found so much benefit. Not just for the police department, but for, the resident that was inquiring and wanting to obtain a U visa. And I think it's critically important that we continue that program without a doubt. So thank you so much and looking forward to working with you.
Councilwoman Freeman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would also like to echo my colleagues in their comments and acknowledging welcome back to Durham, and just know that you have my full support in the work that's ahead. I would also add that I think it's going to be very helpful in context to the work that you're doing and the work that your staff is doing to try and figure out how to be supportive of folks in the community so that there aren't as many guns being fired. And so I do want to just make sure that I note that there's a lot that I hope that we get a chance to talk about in a very thorough way that is actually supportive of what investigations that are occurring and how to make sure that we don't need those types of investigations. I want to make sure that I note that the cold case backlog, I really appreciate you sharing that we did get the grant, the additional grant for $500,000 to continue to kind of work through that backlog of cases, and just making sure that to note that if there are opportunities like that, other opportunities where grant funding is available, please continue to seek that out. I think that the sexual assaults that haven't been processed, can also help to clear to bring the clearance rate up. And so I want to be sure I'm supportive in that. And then just addressing response time and noting that there's a lot of pieces that are a part of that. And I'm hopeful that our 911 call center and people in the community are really being gracious around, or people are being gracious around how our 911 call center's vacancies and our police vacancies are contributing to that. And so we'll continue to try and push and be supportive in any way, shape, or form to support the retention and recruitment necessary to fill the vacancies. And additionally, I would like to say that I am excited that our folks in the community have been raising their hands and saying that they're interested in being supportive and volunteering to support in any way, shape, and form. And so if you do have ideas that go beyond just your office, please be sure to ring that out, or at least share that out with us as council. Thank you.
Councilman Williams.
And one additional thing, I do want to say that I will be in attendance as an Eagle. I think it's supportive. I want to be as fully supportive as possible of another Eagle in their swearing in. And so I look forward to seeing you and actually meeting you in person tomorrow evening. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Councilmember Freeman. I look forward to seeing you, fellow Eagle, and meeting you as well. And thank you so much for your words. We certainly will have some communications going forward. So thank you.
Just real quick, is there a way that I could get demographic information of the victims and perpetrators that aligns with this data regarding the actual activity itself? Do we have that information that we can get at a later time? And I only ask because I do believe that, as I've said before, I wholeheartedly believe that several of the solutions we're seeking are embedded in the community itself. And I know that there are some specialized programs and initiatives and efforts that are happening and that are or will happen that can support some of this, calming some of this activity.
Yes, absolutely. We will prepare maybe a first blush or first draft, and then we can go from there and just let us know if that's what you were specifically looking for on some of the violent crime that I reported out on today. Would be more than happy to. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Anything else for our chief? Chief, thank you so much. We have one person on the telephone, I believe, that is waiting. If you would just hold for 1 second, Chief. I believe we have one person on the line that's been waiting to have an opportunity to speak. And they will have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor O'Neill, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem Middleton, members of the City Council, and Madam City Manager Page. Thank you, Chief of Police Andrews, for your presentation on the 2021 third quarter crime report. According to data from Durham Police Department, for the past 3 years, the overwhelming majority of the city's gun violence victims and perpetrators are boys and young men of color. According to academic achievement and disciplinary data from Durham Public Schools, boys of color, specifically Black boys, have the lowest percentage that met minimum grade level proficiency and college and career readiness, while also having the highest short and long-term suspensions since 2005. We have systemic failure of boys and young men of color in Durham. It's time to act. We need a cradle to career ecosystem for boys and young men of color in Durham, guided by a fully funded boys and young men of color plan for Durham to facilitate improved coordination, strengthen collaboration and shared responsibility, and systemic reforms with clear goals and measurable outcomes to inform our service delivery. We must dismantle the oppression and barriers to equity and inclusion to ensure boys and young men of color of this community have equal opportunity to lead successful and meaningful lives with career and economic stability and success through culturally responsive and high-quality education that prepares them for success in the global economy, supportive mentorship as they define and navigate their path, and access to opportunity to leverage their education and skills in the workforce. The economic landscape in Durham is changing rapidly, and we must ensure we have a vision, plan, strategy, and capacity to provide the needed leadership, services, and support to position our boys and young men of color for long-term competitive advantage in the classroom and the workforce, or we risk them opting for alternatives such as gangs and drugs. The Charles Hamilton Houston Foundation will continue to work tirelessly to ensure boys and young men of color in our Young Men of Excellence program and Career Pathway program gain the skills, experiences, and support that will empower them to reach their potential through education and training to achieve career success and economic stability and mobility. This is not about one person, government agency, or nonprofit organization. This is about the health and well-being of boys and young men of color in Durham. Making a transformative difference in their lives will transform us all. We have everything we need to make this happen. We need action. It's overdue, and I welcome the commitment of our new mayor pro tem, and members of the city council for us to get together, do this work, and make the difference that these boys and young men deserve. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here, Mr. Langley. Chief, I just want to say thank you again for your report today. Job well done. And I'll see you in the nest tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. Take good care. Stay safe and well out there.
Yes, ma'am. I'll see you in the nest. Eagle Pride.
Eagle Pride. Amplified. Amplified. Yes. All right. Before I turn this meeting over to settle the agenda to our city manager, there's one point of clarification in terms of our next work session being held on the 23rd, I believe. And I think there may have been discussion with others about possibly moving that to the 21st. It's at your pleasure. I'll defer to those who may want to make that move.
So moved.
Second. I apologize. I will already be out of town on the 23rd, so it's either an excused absence or.
Mayor Neal, if I could just real quick, back in our August 5th work session, Councilmember Caballero pulled the council meeting schedule from our agenda and asked staff if they'd be willing to move the last work session of the year from Thursday, December 23rd to Tuesday, December 21st. Staff said that'd be no problem. Everybody thumbs upped it. The Mayor Pro Tem actually said, why don't you just cancel everything for December? That sounds great, which I wish was on the agenda today, but isn't. Anyway, when we got to for the Monday night meeting for which that agenda item was set, by inadvertent error, the original schedule was attached. And so that's what staff has been relying on. But obviously the intent of the council was to move it to the 21st, and I think the intent of staff as well. So all of which is a long way of saying, yes, me too.
All right. Well, the motion has been made by Councilwoman Freeman and seconded by Councilwoman Albiero, and we will now call for the question. All of those in favor, sign by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed have the same right. Hearing none, that motion passes unanimously. So now I will turn it over. You okay?
Yeah, we'll confirm. Madam Mayor, could I mention one thing as well about the next couple of meetings? Thank you. We had a brief conversation a few weeks ago about thinking about whether we could have some kind of specific metrics around whether the council should meet virtually or in person, depending on what COVID numbers we're doing. And as numbers have started to go back up, I think we should renew that conversation. We didn't want it to be arbitrary. We wanted to have some sort of data-based reasoning for why we would meet in person or not, but we didn't come up with what that metric would be. And I think there was a little bit of misunderstanding about who was going to do that. So I'd like to revisit that conversation at some point to figure out what we think is a reasonable metric for going back virtual. Our test positivity rate right now is around 5%, and numbers are going up every week. And we're expecting to, that's expected to continue through the holidays. So we probably need to think about it pretty soon.
All right, do we have any suggestions as to when we would like to have that conversation? And of course, I'm playing catch up, so I'll be willing to definitely follow your lead, Councilwoman Johnson, if you want to kind of shepherd that process.
Sure, I'd be happy to consult with Manager Page and with the Public Health Department to get a sense from them of what might be a reasonable metric and follow up with you.
Okay.
Great.
I know I've been having conversations with them, so I just would like to be in the room to listen so that I can learn as I've become more familiar with how we look at that data and analyze it. And I know that Councilman Williams would also probably want to take a part of that conversation just so that we can catch up. But I definitely would like for you to be in there to help shepherd that process so that we can catch up to speed.
Okay, that sounds great. I follow the data, but I'm in no way a public health expert, so would love to have some expertise on figuring out, at what point do we deem it unsafe enough that we don't want the public to physically be here, because that's really the determination. Like, we're all vaccinated, we're all masked, but the more people that come, and if we meet in person, we are inviting the public to come. And so that's really, it's the difference between wanting people to physically be present and not. And so what the threshold is for that, I think, would be a good question for Rod Jenkins.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, if I might. Thank you, ma'am. If, with your permission, I'd like to also insert myself into that conversation and make it part of our larger comprehensive discussion, not only for us as a council and its building, but the masking mandate for the city at large, and just kind of getting a sense of where we're going related to the rise and fall of numbers. I fully associate myself with Councilmember Johnson's observation. I thank her for bringing that up. I think it's an incredibly timely conversation. But so with your permission, ma'am, I'd like to be part of that conversation as well in terms of keeping you abreast and Councilmember Williams abreast and all of us, and kind of looping that into our full comprehensive view of where we're going as a city outside of City Hall as well, related to masking and what kind of metrics we're going to be looking at and how that will inform our decisions moving forward, with your permission.
Yes, sir, so long as we're not having 4 in the room.
Well, it could be an official meeting.
Right.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, but we'll figure it out. We'll figger it out.
I think, given the interest, I think maybe it would make sense to send an email to all of the council and Rod Jenkins to ask for some guidance, and then we could discuss via email what to do for our next meetings, if that works for you, Madam Mayor.
That's fine with me. You'll find that I'm a very collaborative leader. As I indicated on yesterday, if my intellect is going to be the ceiling, then that might be problematic for our city. So we have experts in various areas, and we need to use all of their expertise. So, and we're definitely on a learning curve, and this is one area that I really want to take the time to be very deliberate about what's been going on. So your help is definitely needed and valued.
Madam Mayor, if you don't mind, I would also add that it's probably going to be helpful to include the county in that conversation, acknowledging the county chair. And then also, when we were receiving updates from the county manager, it was a little bit more clearer. But since we haven't been receiving those updates from the county manager or the interim county manager, I think we need to turn that spigot of information back on, because it was really helpful to kind of see who, what, where on a regular, consistent basis. So I think that'll be more going ahead.
So noted.
Just not jumping to Rod Jenkins is what I'm getting at. So I think you might want to talk with the county manager and the county chair.
And I did have one conversation with Mayor Schul and our county health officials. So I've been briefed but my information is just that, it's been brief. So there is a steep learning curve, and I welcome all of your help from each and every one of you all. You've been doing it. You've had to go back and forth between this space and the Zoom space, so the more that we can collaborate together on that to figure out the best solutions, I think that'll be a great thing. So I look forward to all of us having some input and talking about things as we develop what we're going to do next. Thank you for bringing it up. I appreciate that. All right. We'll now turn it over to our able city manager to settle our agenda.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Before I settle the agenda, if I may, I would like to brief the council or bring an update to the council regarding the Bull City Tenants United discussion and items that we've had in the past. The city attorney and I have worked together in this space, as well as staff. I had mentioned to some members of the council that the administration may be ready with a report to you on this day, and you will see from the agenda that we were not ready. So I wanted to, during this meeting, let you know that we are still working on that item, and that we will be ready on January 6th of 2022 to discuss that item again from the perspective of the administration, and we'll be also coordinated with the city attorney's office. So I would like to make that statement before we set this agenda coming up. All right, for the council meeting for the consent agenda, I have items 9 through 14 and items 17 through 23. And we have one GBA public hearing, and that is item 27.
All right, we're entertaining a motion to settle the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All right, it has been moved by Councilwoman Freeman, seconded by Councilwoman Caballero. Let us now move to our vote. All right. And now we're moving to, we are asking that you all vote verbally with an A or a nay. The A's would go first, I's would go first on settlement of our agenda items for our next meeting. I will now call for the question. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed would have the same right. Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. We have now settled our agenda. I believe that we have made it through our first work session.
Congratulations.
Unless there is any other items. Thank you, Madam Clerk. How well did your student do today?
Get an A+.
All right, everybody. Thank you all so much for being so patient. I'm still getting the motions and stuff kind of clicking in my head because I'm not used to those types of motions. I'm used to other ones that don't require a vote, but a granted or dismissed or overruled. So I have to kind of get that kind of judge mindset out and put in the other kind of motions that we're dealing with here today. I really appreciate you all, and thank you. We will now adjourn this meeting at the hour of, what time is it? 3:47. I'm going to get some better eyeglasses. 3:47 on December 9th. Thank you all, and we will hit the gavel. Well.